This is a podcast for spiritual downloads, star seeds, light workers, and authenticity. Spiritual awareness is advised. Welcome to the 1111 podcast. Would you join me with a deep breath in and a deep breath out? Congratulations, you've made it through the week. You've made it to the other side of the 8-8 portal, the 1111 podcast, Lionsgate portal. And if you're here catching this live, you've probably realized that we just came through some really intense energy called the Lionsgate portal. And if you're not here live and you are catching this in general, I want you to stay tuned because I do have a special guest that will be joining me. I'm so honored to have on the platform, on the channel. And if you are someone who would like to submit a topic, you can always do that. Reach out to me via social media, YouTube, etc. And if you want to be a guest yourself, or if you'd like to nominate someone, of course, make sure that works for everyone involved and let me know what topic you may want to discuss and anything that is coming up in your world. Definitely a lot is coming up with this energy heightened time right now. As with any time when there is more light, there is naturally, inevitably more shadow. So you may be feeling influx of energy. You may be feeling a lot of different parameters happening right now. There might be a lot going on, and you might just need to rest. And to know that rest is just as important, if not more important in some cases, than doing. We are human beings, not human doing. And I know that with AI, with productivity, with everything, there can always be a perplexity to speed things up and to work smarter, harder, faster. But just take a deep breath, take it step by step. You're well on your way. So today's topic is all about loving it all. The good, the bad, the ugly, the unmentionables, all the things we are embracing and learning and discussing on today's topic. And if you are new to the channel and haven't already got your merchandise, check out the merch store, get your 1111 paraphernalia, rock it, tag me in it, all of that good stuff. If you are someone who's interested in learning about musical instruments, production, etc., I do offer music lessons that are unconventional. So it's not the typical way you might learn, but it may be something that is beneficial to you, as well as offering holistic healing and mental health services such as counseling, therapy, Reiki healing. All of that can be found on the website. And if you're having any issues booking sessions, please send me an email. The full counseling email is listed in the description below. So all of those services are there and more to come up in this conversation that you will hear shortly. But before moving into the second half of this episode, I did want to just start with a few things that have been on my mind in regards to loving it all and understanding what that means and to ground into that. Because in this human experience, we will have a collective of experiences. We will have a mixed bag of positive and negative experiences. And they all serve a purpose to help sharpen our discernment, help us have compassion for others, and soul lessons that we agreed to before we even arrived on this planet. And so much more than even just that. But what does loving it all mean? Well, to me, it means acceptance, embracing the challenges, accepting our flaws, the things we may want to change about ourselves or others, to allow them to exist and to find beauty in that. The things that we might despise or not approve of, to choose to adore them and to draw them closer to us and see how they are perfect as they are, to be perfectly imperfect. And on the last recording, I talked about the continuation of my spiritual awakening journey. And one of the things that was not played on that episode. Towards the end, I started to kind of go on a tantrum, if you will, of recalling my own experience. And I ended up editing that out. Now, if you've been on this channel for a while, you probably know I don't really edit at all. But that felt not needed, and it was just becoming a lengthier storyline than it was intended to be. And I've debated playing perhaps that snippet, and I'm still debating that, so I might save that to the end. So if you stay for the end credits, you might hear that part of the storyline that was edited out. And it was edited out not because I was ashamed of my experience, but because I felt like I'd said enough, and I felt like it was a good closing space. And then I remembered something, and I was like, oh, yeah, this. And part of loving it all is loving those experiences that shape us. And I go into the storyline of how I've always felt connected to the singer, fashion designer, makeup artist, what have you, businesswoman known as Rihanna. And I've always felt connected to her, and my story parallels hers in many ways until it started to branch off. But it parallels her life in so many ways during her time and during my time. And I talk about abuse and partaking in that abuse. And that's something that is a part of my storyline of being a survivor of domestic violence and being someone who's experienced those patterns and have inadvertently operated in those patterns myself. And once things became really stark, and it wasn't necessarily in that connection where it was so obvious, it was starting to see the potential of how abusive things could be within myself. But it was really in my next connection that it started to really manifest, and I started to realize I need to get help. I need to really sit down with my trauma before I continue to spread it and before I continue to hurt anyone else, whether subconsciously or otherwise. And so loving it all is choosing to love those things that we'd rather not discuss. You know, one thing that I hear a lot in my community, the African American community, is a lot of people say, I'm taking this to the grave. I'm not telling nobody my secrets. I'm taking it to the grave. And one of the things that I really appreciate about counseling and therapy is that it's an open space where you can leave your burdens there. You didn't come here to suffer. You didn't come here to be in bondage of your own pain and abuse and trauma. And at the same time, the trauma you've experienced and survived gives you a better understanding of things and is usually intended to help someone else or to help other people or the majority that could really benefit from your story. Now, I'm not saying go out here and tell everyone your story. You have to find what is going to be in your best and highest good. But when we carry that vibration of pain, it gets submerged in our system and lodged in our system, and we repeat those patterns until someone chooses to break them. Another thing in my community can be this entitlement of feeling like, well, I suffered, so you should suffer. Or you see these women, particularly women who will have children just so they can abuse them, whether consciously or subconsciously, where they haven't worked through their traumas. And I promise you, if you haven't worked through it, the odds of repeating it are very likely. You hear people say, I'll never be like my parents, or I'll never do that, or I'll never be like my ex, or whatever. And then they go and do the exact same thing. And it's because without conscious repetition practice, the odds of repeating it are like 99% high. I'm not saying it's always going to happen, but just saying it is not the same thing as working through it and processing it. So hopefully through this conversation, this recording, you will learn and feel that this is a safe place to process that, and that there's nothing wrong with loving it all. To take all those parts of us and see them for the beauty and appreciation that they deserve and that they honor and they have. And so some other things that have been coming up in my own psyche is recognizing how I grew up in a very judgmental, self-righteous, entitled, selfish type of environment. And the ways that those behaviors play out, such as having an avoidant attachment style, or having just other things to process and to really work through. And part of taking that power back, part of owning oneself, is to accept previous versions of oneself. And so I recently went back to a video I made almost, I don't know, over 10 years ago, definitely over 10 years ago. And it's a video that I made. It's my take of a music video to the 311 Love Song version of that song. They remade it, and I made a video to that. And I've always liked movies, directing, etc. And so that was my take of just stepping into the driver's seat and just saying, you know what? Instead of just dreaming about it, let me do something to move in that direction. And I've kept that video for obviously over 10 years now. Never released it, but I finally, with the energy of Mercury retrograde, went back, finished making that video, and recently posted it. And I'll leave it in the description for those who might want to check it out. And it's a very healing moment to be able to honor and see the pain from my former self, and also honoring the journey that I've been on and will continue to be on. And that's the thing about loving it all, is it's always going to be something. There's always going to be something, whether a challenge, whether a new hell to face, whether something else to grow in, because we live in a world of duality. It's not really something we can escape. So the best thing to do is to learn to love it all, to love the light, to love the dark, to love the positives and the negatives. And when we talk about loving it, it's different than just saying, I deserve this tragedy that's happening, or this is acceptable to treat people this way. Not at all. But what we are saying is, it's happening for a reason, and I can either hate it, run from it, object it, be afraid of it, or I can choose to accept that this is the path, this is a way, and this is happening for a reason. And so there will be many things that we might feel that will make us feel shame, or that'll make us feel small, or make us compare ourselves, or whatever the case is. But the more that we lean into loving it all and loving ourselves, the less we'll feel the propensity to do that. The less that desire to think that way will start to mitigate, and we'll start to flourish in our own being. So know that it's all well, it's all good. And in addition to that, there's a song that I'm going to play for this commercial break that we're going to go on before we have our special guest join. But this song is a song I made, again, X amount of years ago, and I've never made drums to it. It's only instruments. And I've been wanting to make drums to it. And ironically, I never named it either. The name I gave it was You Name Me. I never named it. And so now I've decided that I'm going to release it, and calling it the Loving It All Challenge. So I have a challenge that I'm posing to you. If you're a musician, if you're an artist, if you're a producer, songwriter, etc., I challenge you to make your own version to this track that you're going to hear shortly. In the description, we'll have more details. But the Loving It All Challenge, I want you to come up with your own creation to this. I'm really more so looking for someone to add drums to this. But I'm expanding it. If you want to add spoken word, if you want to add a dance, whatever it is, you know. But the Loving It All Challenge is to take this clip, this track, and make it your own. And I'll leave this challenge up and ready for the next 8 weeks. So if you're catching this in real time, 8 weeks from the day that you're hearing this, or the day that this is being posted, will take us up to October, and around the 5th. So you have some time to wait until the winner is announced then. But yes, the winner will be receiving promotion on my page. They'll get a repost of their version of it on my SoundCloud page. They have a free hour of a session, a spiritual coaching counseling session with me. And they will get a spotlight on the podcast if they want to either be given a shout out or if they want to be a feature on the podcast. So all of these things and more are going to be announced with the winner. So if you want to know more about that, you can reach out to my music email, theagentk21music@gmail. Let me know how you want to enter the contest and submit your music. You can submit it by making it into an MP3 file, or if it's a video, an MP4 file, and then sending it to me, or tagging me on social media, or any other way to let me know that you would like to enter the contest and submit your work, so that way I can honor you and promote you and encourage you and announce you as a winner. So that is the Loving It All Challenge. I'm naming this track Loving It All, so you'll be able to find that detail in the description. And lastly, if you were going through this Lionsgate portal with us all, I actually have a playlist of different music that I've been making over the years. It's called Lion. It is a playlist that will help you ground in the energy and the mindset of the lion and help you through this portal. Again, a lot of things may be coming up right now. And so to help sit with that and ground in that energy, something I personally do when I need a little bit of guidance or assistance, I'll go to a certain playlist and I will just ask a question and I will shuffle it. So I will leave that for you to do if you feel so inclined to shuffle the Lion playlist. And some things you may ask are, what do I need in this moment? Or how can I best see the situation? Or what am I not seeing right now? Anything like that, just keeping it very simple, very broad. What is the message I need right now? Give me a sign. And then you'll just shuffle it. Now, I don't know how the shuffle works on all devices, but at least on iOS devices, such as Apple devices, if you're on the YouTube channel and you click on the three dots, it will give you the option to shuffle the playlist, so that if you're confused, like, how do I shuffle? This is a YouTube playlist. Also, something else I would personally be doing is probably either writing down the songs or taking a screenshot of them so I can make them in my own, whatever platform of music I choose to listen to. So I know YouTube may not be the best as far as not having ads or as convenient, but it is convenient as far as making it available to the general public. But if that's not the platform you choose to use, of course, by all means, you can take those songs, make your own playlist on whatever music app or platform you use, and go through it that way. So let's take a quick commercial break and then stay tuned for our special guest. All right, welcome back. Thank you all for joining and recommitting to the 1111 journey here. And I have a very special guest. And as I always like to say, I'm going to let your energy introduce yourself. So please share with us anything you'd like us to know.
Thanks, Kendra. Thank you for having me. So I'm Jordanna Eyre. I am, from a business sense, the founder of a company called Spiral Growth Systems, which is formerly known as Modern Day Sorcerer. I am a sorceress, but not in the like, oh, I just gave myself a cool gimmicky name. In fact, I resisted the name. I really am. What that means is I work with the systems of energy that are inside of everything, really, and from a mathematical and scientific perspective, the Fibonacci sequence. So, what I do is I teach business leaders how to utilize the Fibonacci sequence, how to utilize those systems of energy that exist inside of and around us that are continually guiding us inside of their leadership and their business so that they can really be the change they wish to be. And I introduce myself business first because really what I do is in a huge part me. And it
Mhm.
guides me on the daily. Like I am, of course, equally as much a student of all of that as I am a teacher.
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate that humility because I feel like there's a need for that, especially in leadership and especially in the spiritual community. So thank you for that. And I love that you started by talking about the different systems, because we're talking about embracing all that we are, really, essentially, on this. And for most of us who are on that spiritual journey, we feel like, and there's that quote that says, you're a spirit having a human experience. And understanding the different systems, whether it's our nervous system or it's our mind, body, soul connection, how do we learn to try to bring those into alignment and bring those into balance? Because I feel like when those get in balance, that's when a lot of chaos or a lot of heartache or health issues or business collapse or anything like that can happen. So, how do we learn how to embrace those things, understand them, and come into alignment with them?
That is a powerful question. I would be curious your take. I will add mine. So it really, for me, one of the biggest places that it can start, one of the most supportive places to go to begin, is what I refer to as the gap between the wisdom and the wound. Like, all of us have the wisdom that we're born with, the things that we just know deep down inside. Oh, if only the world XYZ, that really drive us. They drive our creativity, they drive our desire. And then we all have, we could say equal amounts, because it's like it's always shifting. We're infinite on all levels. We're infinite in terms of what we can uncover and what we can quote unquote heal, as much as we are what we are uncovering for, for service sake or fulfillment sake. And so on the other quote unquote side of the paradox, where there's the wisdom, there's the wound, right? So the places where we falter or we fear or we have the tendency to go towards suffering instead of immediately towards the light, where we create suffering or co-create that dance with it. And so wherever there's a gap, I find, between the wisdom that we have and the suffering we experience, or the trauma, the wound, is where tends to be easiest, I think, for most of us to allocate and like really get in touch with those systems. Because it's one thing to be like, oh, I'm going to go to a trauma specialist, or I'm going to go to, like, I've got a network spinal practitioner back in Los Angeles, where I'm from. Love him. He's been magic for me. But I'm currently in Greece. How do I do it on my own, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, though we can go to others to source support, and there's nothing wrong with that in really balancing those systems and coming home in our connection with them, I really find that, again, it's the quote unquote gap, where the wisdom that you have and the wounds that want to be integrated there will lead us into greater connection with the systems within and around us. But I'd be
Yeah.
curious your take, what that is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely agree with that wisdom in the wound, because it's through the cracks that the light enters. It's through the darkness that we even find the light. And in order to even be lightful, we have to be willing to embrace the darkness. And I think most of us have been conditioned and programmed to be afraid of the dark, literally, metaphysically, in every type of way. And what we haven't learned, and I'm hoping at some point we will start to learn this through either teaching or just modeling it, of how to embrace those things, how to actually heal, like truly heal, and not just loftily think that we're healing, but to actually understand what that means, to embody it. So I think that dance and that wisdom in the wound, they cannot be separated, just like the light and the dark cannot be separated. They're two sides of the same coin. So I think what happens is we, like, again, are conditioned and we shame ourselves for the things that are unacceptable in a certain society and things that are not. And then we try to mold ourselves to gain that acceptance, so that we don't have to feel that abandonment, we don't have to feel that isolation. And because we are communal creatures, we need each other. We do need that support. We do need to resource with one another. And at the same time, simultaneously, we have to resource that from within ourselves as well. And we have to bring those fragmented parts within ourselves to a completion, to a wholeness. And that way it does attract people who match that on the outside, that healed version of us. So I think that balancing those systems, it really just takes awareness. It's always the first step, is being aware of where do we feel imbalance, and then attuning to our emotions. How do I feel? You know, and understanding the subconscious patterns and programs that we all inherit based on the race, the gender, the socioeconomic class, all the different types of programs that we embark on in this journey. And having um, that humility to see these things, to recognize them, the things that we want to run from, the things that we might feel ashamed of, and to try to pull them more into the energy of love, of acceptance, of honoring, and then doing that when we meet other people as well. So, I mean, it's a practice to say the least, but first seeing what systems are even operating with. And one thing I've noticed, like culturally, especially like in religious sectors, they kind of teach you to not trust yourself. Don't follow your heart. Don't do this. Don't do that. And it's like, how do you reprogram yourself? You know what I mean? And it's many ways that anyone could go about that. Um, but just to um, kind of condense it back to loving it all, just starting at the bare foundation of that. What does that phrase mean to you, loving it all?
Mm. So I'm going to go a little like I'm going to answer that question directly, but almost in a way there's an indirect nature because there's something that you said that I feel very much parlays into what it means to me. So you said earlier, and I don't remember exactly what you were speaking to when you said it, but that you go to how you feel, right? And if we say, okay, well, we know everything's energy, right? And so the things that we are having the experience of not loving are energy equal to the things that we are loving. So how do we get so closely in touch with those things that we aren't loving and even know the difference not loving when a lot of the time what we perceive to be love can actually be fear and vice versa, right? We paint pictures of light out of fear and we use fear to propel perceptions of light and love, right? And so when we boil it back down to the feeling, that's what guides us. Are we really loving it all? And the feeling may be confused at first. It might not have an answer, right? And yet it's through the feeling that we get in touch with the simplicity of the energy. And it's through the feeling that we simplify both the answers and ultimately whatever resolutions, quote unquote, need to be found. So to more directly answer loving it all, I mean, it's a lot of, it's what you said. Like it is, it's the dark, there's the dark and there's the light, and it's loving every single moment of it. Loving the dark equally to the light, not from a place of attachment, rather knowing that at the end of the day, it is all light, and not gaslighting yourself out of experiencing any parts of it, right? So being in the full experience of the triggers, the challenges, so on and so forth. But again, like from the loving of the experience of it rather than trying to escape or mold or change, but without attachment. Like that's loving it all.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And yeah, it is all connected. It all has purpose. And darkness, when we make it so binary, like light and dark, it can create that whole chasm of good and evil, right and wrong, and all of these beliefs that are really illusions and really just falsify things to help us feel safe in a chaotic world, to try to make sense, to try to rationalize it to the brain to make sense of it. But life is a feeling process. So it's not about it making logical sense. It's about finding that alignment of like what resonates, and understanding that darkness is simply the absence of light. So it's not evil, it's not wrong. It's the shadow that gives us shade when we need it, and that has beauty and purpose in it. And so if we demonize that or run from that, we're only harming ourselves. And so I appreciate what you said, and you reminded me of a question that I actually have here. When you mention a lot of times that we confuse that love for fear, we think we're operating in loving ways, but it's actually our fear. And that does happen a lot. And we have to first start by, what do we even think love means? How do we define it? What was our examples of it? What beliefs do we have around it? Do we believe it exists? All of these different things to really
Mm-hmm.
uncover. And then we can kind of pull back the layers to see, are we operating from fear disguised as love, that we've assumed was love, that we perceived, and all of that. And so one of the questions is, what can we shift when we relate to the density and the most challenging feelings with love? How do we
What
shift
can
it? Yeah, sorry, I'll say it again. What can we shift when we relate to the dense and most challenging feelings with love?
Ooh, such a good question. So part of it is how we relate to the density, which is such a simple answer. Like, yeah, and what does that really mean, right? So it's we can shift our state of being with it. We can shift it is how we perceive it in the mind is important. I spent years and years and years within how I show up as a facilitator saying, okay, mindset's not everything. And that is like so true.
Hmm.
And there is an element of where the perception, like, and the mindset that we do have is very crucial. And yet it is, of course, not just that. Like when we're with the density, it's really like I found that the more expansive we can become energetically with density, the easier time we have moving through it. Because density is the kind of energy that, like anything that's dense, it cannot be cleared with force. You can't think your way out of it. And you also can't love your way through it from the perceptions of love that we perceive that are actually dark, right? And when you're in the density, you don't always know which is which. So the more we can really calibrate the systems in our body, our nervous system, our emotional systems, and even just like our kinesthetic, our ability to just be like, can you actually quiet the mind and just feel your bones?
Yeah.
Can you feel your blood flow? Can you let your breath move all the way through, etc., and so on? And so the more we learn how to be, and learn isn't really the best word, calibrate and integrate various states of being that are more expansive within our own systems, very much from the body and also the mind, the easier it is to be with the density. And then when we can be with it and our attention is able to go there from love, then it tends to integrate. Now,
Yeah.
did that answer your question though? Because it was such a
Absolutely.
potent.
No, I think that was wonderful. Yeah, that was so, again, well said. Um, and now, like, just knowing that, because I feel like that all makes sense. And then when it's hard to describe when you've gone through it, hard to describe how you actually get to that point of the other side of that darkness or that density, because it's something you have to experience, it's something you have to live through and work through. And I feel like most people just want the answer, like, okay, well, is it going to be over, is it going to be done? And a lot of times we struggle to sit with uncomfortable emotions. We don't like to be out of our comfort zone. um, any practical tips of how to sit with the density or to sit with the darkness that you've either experienced on your journey or that you think would be helpful for others?
Yeah, yeah. There are various tools that we can use. Um, though I have even found those tools, like certain tools, may work better for one person than another. So it is really about, again, the energetic recalibration rather than the tools. Because I could say, try breath work, or I actually work with Hindu Ishta Devatas. But that's not something I would recommend to a lot of people because A, that could be weird for people. Like if it doesn't resonate, then it's not going to stick.
Mhm.
And B, and or there might be religious trauma in the way of that, and so that would be B. And C, they are so powerful. Like if you're not ready,
Yeah.
it will knock too much away that it's like it can be overwhelming. So there's just that's an example of where like certain things, or like, oh, these are tools that you can use to be with your body more, and yet if your mind is still running, you may need other things first,
Yes.
right? So now, can you clarify the question again, though? Because I feel like I went on so much of a tangent that I'm not
No,
getting
no, that
completely the
was
question.
good actually. That was good because I appreciate what you just said because a lot of times people are just looking for that quick fix. Just give us the fast food, just give us the drive-through healing. But it's not that cut and dry and it doesn't usually work that way. And even the tools can be limited themselves. So it's like you have to integrate the tools. You have to really desire this and then you will find that path. You will be guided and you have to connect to that. So
Yeah.
that question was mainly just for the I could just feel that energy of like, well, tell us how, tell us why, and just to kind
Yeah.
of get to like,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
there are tools, but it's something you really have to sit with. It's something you have to
Yeah.
really purge and find what's going to work for you. Um,
It's
so
not a linear process. And if we
yeah,
tried to make it linear, that with the wart. So a lot of my, I said I work with business leaders, right? So it stands to reason, it's probably obvious then, that a certain amount of people that come to me, though I tend to work with people that have done a lot of personal growth already, even then, business leaders on average tend to be very logical people. And so people will come to me that maybe have even been meditating for 30 years, but there's still this logic that's like geared in, and we have to literally, but I'm not doing it, like the process we go through. But I warn them and prepare them for this. Look, you're going to want to use your logic at first. That's okay. Logic isn't bad or wrong. In fact, it's probably part of your unique wisdom. However, the logic may have to, for lack of better words, die off before it's reborn, right?
yeah,
Like there's a recalibration of logic that happens when we let the process be non-binary, non-linear, and we're willing to really attune to it for ourselves, right? So you can get somebody else's guidance. You can go to a mentor, a coach, a teacher, do a program, right? They could work with you, they could work with me, and still, for anyone listening, like it would have to be their own authentic nonlinear process, which will inevitably recalibrate someone's version of logic. But the beauty is that there's a deeper logic beneath that. There is logic in all of these energy systems. There is logic in spirit. There is logic in creation and all of its universal systems and consciousness, but it's not the way we have been conditioned to relate to logic. But you
hmm
can't teach that logic with that same conditioning of logic. You have to
exactly.
teach it we learn it by unraveling the old logic, right? To get
Yeah,
to what's pure and already true for us.
absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree. Because again, we try to find these things to feel safe, we have to have a hero and a villain so we can know what feels right and what feels makes sense. And I like that the logic is not, it doesn't dissipate, it just enriches even more because there is stability in chaos. There is the balance of the energies of the divine masculine, divine feminine energies that are inseparable. So it's not to say get rid of your ego, get rid of your logic. It's to say how can we embrace these? How can we use them to their highest potential?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I will ask that next question of I kind of have a different question I want to go with is because I just mentioned the ego. A lot of spiritual teachings are kind of like, oh, get rid of the ego or the ego's bad. What is your take on the ego, the purpose of it, or how to express it? Like, what's your take on it?
Oh, it's so multi-layered, right? And I feel that our relationship with it, it's important to allow it to mold and shift over time. Certainly I would say, like, okay, from a simplicity standpoint, what even is the ego? Okay, it's layers of protection. It's layers of protection around the truth, around the wisdom, and yet also it is layers that we can only unravel and integrate in specific, I don't know about specific, in the timing that is most aligned. And so there are ways in which we may be called to dissolve our ego that might actually have been harmful for us if we had done so 5 years or even 6 months prior. Like the protective layers of the ego can very much serve and support. It's the attachment to them, though, I think that really can cause the most harm,
Yeah.
because it's like when we consider, like, okay, well, how do I know if I'm an illusion or delusion? Well, that's the ego, but and if we need the ego, then, and that's where, like, the more we release attachment to the ego and still honor it, but don't honor it also with attachment, honor it without attachment, then I think, like, from there, the more it will unravel in time. The last thing I will add is, a lot of people say that ego cannot dissolve. I personally believe that it can, and it does, with cellular level transformation, which begins from the state of feeling that we've been discussing, right? And yet, also, though I do believe it can, it's like a layer will dissolve and another layer and another layer. And we can, and if we were to be like, well, but I already worked on that childhood trauma, didn't I work? Like, that's ego too, to even think, well, I worked on it and therefore there's no more layers.
Right, right. Exactly, exactly. And even with like Buddhist principles, they say like desire, they say to not have desire. And they say to not want desire is a desire in itself. So it's like that's just what came up as you said that, because yeah, it's when we try to make meaning of it and try to define it and confine what these things ought to be or should be, that's when it can, as you said, lead to that attachment and lead to just misusing it almost, because it's not allowing it to flourish as it is intended.
Yep.
And like you said, the ego is a protector. It's self protection, it's a defender, it's there for a reason. So to cast it out completely, it's going to be leaving yourself defenseless. And it's also rejecting a part of yourself, which is the opposite of loving it all.
Really is. Yep.
and, and we talk about like attachment and all of that, and to kind of operate in a more detached way, to not be so focused on the outcome or to not be so focused on things have to be this way or that way, but to kind of operate in a state of like gratitude and just appreciating what is and what comes up. How do you uh, uh, connect the levels of detachment and what that means to you? Detachment connected to loving it all. How do those two work together?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question, because detachment is so multi-layered as well, right? Like anything. So one of my very, very favorite phrases, all-time favorite phrases, is it's all how you use it. Because anything can be used in service or in harm. Anything can be used to generate more love or destroy and create more fear. Right. And so when it comes to detachment, we can use it to generate and create more love, or to destroy and feed into fear. Right. And
Mhm.
so it's like the process of detachment unto itself. The I've like the more so I'm like, let me get into the energy of this. Hang on. Because right now it's the mind that wants to answer. Okay, so there's like, if we go into, generally speaking, the cave that we fear to enter, you know that, like, very age old quote, I think it's Joseph Campbell, but it might actually be somebody else. I'm not sure who originally said this: the cave that you fear to enter holds a treasure you most seek.
Mm.
When we're working with detachment and learning to really work with it in order to love it all, it's about willingness to also go into the cave that we most fear to enter, because that's where we're going to find the layers of detachment that actually have been attachment, or
Mm.
the layers of detachment that have been fear, so that we can integrate those and learn to be detached from a state of, and this might actually be controversial, I would say ultimately from a state of desire.
Yeah.
What I have found so interesting is that even though what Buddhists say about desire is absolutely true.
Hmm.
And also, and I do believe, I'm not positive because I have not studied Buddhism, but from what I sense and what I've heard, if you go deeper into the philosophy, you will also, I believe, find what I'm about to say. That though desire can cultivate attachment and therefore be deeply unsupportive, there are elements of desire that come from non attachment. We
Mm.
find this like deeper, so it's like I tend, when I'm with my students, I won't teach someone who's very new to this work to activate desire, because it's hard to know the difference between ego and like a source perspective desire, right? But the more we go into those caves that we have feared to enter and start to develop a healthier sense of non-attachment, the easier it is to, for lack of better words, purify
Mhm.
what our desires truly are. And then we can operate from these like higher desires, not higher as better than, but pure, cleaner, more like source speaking through us.
Mhm.
And we can work with those desires from non-attachment. And I feel like I went on more of a tangent than was your question.
All good. Those are welcome here. All good. Yeah. No, I definitely appreciate the quote for one. That's I hadn't heard that one, but that's beautiful. And I'm thinking of like Aladdin's cave right now, like going into it. But that's awesome. Yeah, I feel like there's so much to grasp, and I'm not even sure if I fully grasp it, but I feel it. Like everything you just said is so gold, and I can sense that, and I think that desire, detachment, these things can be on the surface level not really understood. Because when we say detached, we're not talking about being cold and cold-hearted and being so detached from other people that you don't care about other people's experiences. We're
Mm-hmm.
coming from a place of understanding the ways that attachment to certain things have become blockages, attachment to the way things have to go, our attachments to who you think you are, things like that have become hindrances on the journey, even if they are intended to be protector ego things. We have to kind of pull back and really understand them and see them. And everything is so multi-layered, like you said, even with desire. Like some cultures may say desire is wrong and bad, and some cultures say desire is healthy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so living in such polarities of these messages that we get, especially for our inner child, that gets all these messages that screw us up, that have us so confused. How
Yeah.
do we find um, how do we find our way to loving it all when we've been so taught to hate certain parts of ourselves? How do we, let me ask it
Such a good
again,
question.
how do we like love it all when we want to hate it all?
Oof. Such a good question. Part of, you mentioned parts of ourselves. And that is such a crucial element to it, because there are parts that need to hate it all for a moment because they never got to. They never got to feel the anger or the shame or the guilt or the sadness or the grief or whatever emotion they needed to experience when X trauma happened, or when we had these experiences. And these experiences can be childhood as well as, if you believe in it, other layers of time, other lifetimes, our ancestors, etc.
Hmm.
And so allowing ourselves to work with those parts and really let the parts experience what they need, while loving the part as best we can and letting the part love it all. Letting the part, like, okay, you need to hate for a moment. I'm going to hold space for you to hate. So you're loving the part while it hates, so it can hate with love, essentially.
Yeah.
Like it can hate through the love. Another big thing that I will add too, before I complete, is we live in a very identity driven culture. And oh boy, is that interesting. Because just like, I said, it's all how you use it, being one of my favorite phrases. There are ways in which people are staking claim in their identity that is in beautiful service. Like, I would not tell someone who was born, male in a female body, like feeling male in a female body, no, you can't be trans and you can't identify. Like, of course, I would say, abso-freaking-lutely identify as you experience yourself. By all means, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who who would say, oh, that's wrong that they're no, it's not. Like, they need to express themselves. And when we have attachment to our identities, that can be like where the ego clings and attaches and just causes so much suffering. So,
Mm.
and yet, again, it is a process, just like
Yeah.
all layers of ego are process, right? It may not be ego it may be like your truth and your essence to claim identity. And then that identity, how you cling to it may need to die off. We go through, again, layers of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Being willing to work with our identity, though, and let parts of it dissolve, die off, as well as honor what needs to be honored, I think can be a really important part of the process.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And just getting back to that, because I feel like that's such an important part of identity. When we live in a culture that really masks a lot of insecurities as confidence or as identity or as virtues, even, um, how do we uncover our identity underneath all the layers of everything that's been put upon us? How do we truly uncover our identity? Because I feel like that's key to loving it all. It's key to knowing it all and loving it all.
Such a good question. It kind of goes circular back around to developing a relationship with ego, right? And with feeling, because it's really through the feeling. And not everyone is feeling prone first. Some people resonate more as deep feelers, others don't. I do believe at the end of the day, we are all deep feelers, whether that's our go to or not. But you got to start where you got to start, right? And ultimately, allowing ourselves to really feel helps us do the work with identity that needs to be done. It gives us more permission to like own and identify and recognize where something has been conditioning or imprinting or just culture versus what we really are. And my experience is like a lot of real identity dissolution that may need to happen is very cosmic in nature. But you can't guide somebody, just like we talked about with like, okay, we can teach you a linear process, but if you're using it in a linear way, like it's not going to serve you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so in order to be able to access those elements of ourselves that are so cosmic and are going to dissolve for us or lead us into that cosmic cellular level dissolution, we have to be able to let go and surrender so much. And that starts with states of feeling. The more we can let ourselves feel, the closer we get to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you said it's cosmic too, because again, we are stardust, and some of us may identify as light workers, star seeds, etc. All of these different things. And I think that one of the questions that begs from our childhood and our inner self is, who am I? Who am I? Is such a simple question, but so complex. And I feel like most of us, again, have been shackled with so many layers of not knowing who we are and not knowing are training ourselves to be different than who we are to gain acceptance, approval, love, etc. I guess the question I'm getting towards is, for those who may be resistant to loving it all, what advice would you say to that person? What would you say to someone resisting loving it all?
That's a great question. I'd say own the resistance. Like frickin' own it. Because the more, and it's funny because I just said, okay, clinging to identity doesn't serve. And yet it is owning something that lets us love it. And just like any other form of what you could call darkness, and I don't, dark resistance is light too, because
Mm-hmm.
resistance is sourcing more light within us. And yet it may feel dark. It can often feel dark in the moment. And so really owning it and being like, I am in freaking resistance right now. Heck yeah. And that can seem so counterintuitive and counterproductive because it's like, well, but if you claim ownership, then aren't you choosing that? And if that's your choice, and aren't you creating more of that? With resistance, it doesn't generally work that way. Obviously, someone could, it's all how you use it, someone could claim so much ownership to resistance that it keeps them there. I have yet to see that happen.
Yeah.
In my experience, generally, when people are like, yay, I'm celebrating that I am in resistance, that will support them in, because that way you're not forcing yourself to love it. You're not
Mm-hmm.
forcing yourself to like, oh, I gotta love the dark. I gotta love the heaviness. No, you don't. Just be with the resistance as much as you can. Celebrate that. And then it will, because it knows. It comes up because it knows where you need to go and it will take you where you need to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And life is such a experience, and it's really convoluted, complex, and it's not counterproductive. What word am I looking for? Sometimes it feels that way, right? But no, it's like we live in contradictions, where two things can be true, or it's so many different things that can be difficult to wrap one's mind around, which is why you need more than just logic to get you to point A to point B, or just to even grasp a lot of these spiritual concepts. It's understanding logic is great in the practical and the physical, and what you feel is also great in that too, but also in the spiritual realm. And then, like you said, uncovering that deeper wisdom of how the logic is applicable to the spirit realm is when you really start to become that master manifester and alchemist and all of these things. And so, I guess just to kind of, in an overarching worldview of this, what do you feel would happen if everyone was truly loving it all?
Oh my gosh. I'm getting excited to hear what you would say to this too. Okay, so what would truly happen if everyone were truly, truly loving it all? Oof. I mean, I could oversimplify it and say there wouldn't be any more war.
Hmm.
And the thing is, that sounds possibly crazy and counterproductive. It's like, well, but if they're loving the war, wouldn't it continue? Not in my experience.
Yeah, no.
My experience, like, is more of a cosmic experience. I've never been in the middle of a war zone. Shoot me, I'm loving it. I haven't. I can't say that for sure from a human perspective.
Yeah.
But I've been sent into cosmic experiences
Mhm.
that are like war zones,
Yes.
where I'm sent through those experiences. And in that, what I have always discovered is that is actually what will heal those layers. Now, it could take time, right? But that's
Mhm.
the thing, is like, if we were really loving it all, the time that it needs to take would in a way speed up, slash we would love that too.
Mhm.
So it, like, I mean, from a simplistic standpoint, it would take us to the point where we really are connected as a collective, and yet our individuality that needs to be claimed is loved too. So we would, I mean, I don't even know, like, the list of possibilities would go on, but I
Yeah.
do believe that really all of the planet's strifes and problems, including physical planetary issues, like, well,
Mhm.
how do we resolve, global warming related issues, or
Mhm.
issues with, what's happening with trash or power and water? If we really loved it all, it would transform so much in our perspective,
Yeah.
that even the things that seem unsolvable, I truly believe we would see and get and have the solutions for together as a collective with our
Yeah.
own authentic puzzle pieces. I'm
Exactly. That's
so
beautiful.
curious your take though.
No, I definitely like that. And that's ironic because I was just talking about the spiritual warfare that happens and how the war is internal. Everything we see on the outside is a reflection of what's happening on the inside. And so if everyone was sitting down with themselves, stopping the war within, there would be no need to have it exemplified in the outside world. So I'm so grateful that that was the first thing you said, because I absolutely agree. And At the same time, like you said, yes, we are speaking at this from an outside perspective, not literally experiencing what other people are experiencing. And we don't necessarily know the trauma and pain and how difficult that would be. But even that has purpose, because I follow a lot of people who are holding light in those dark areas where there is war, where there is chaos, where there is just inhumane treatment. And they're still putting out positivity, and they're still speaking truth to darkness at the same time. So it is purposeful. Um, but does it need to happen? I wouldn't say so, especially if everyone was loving it all, because we wouldn't even see these things as right or wrong, good or bad. We would see them as they are, worthy of love. And at the same time, I think that I've had a lot of different timelines coming up recently. And one of those timelines, I've had past lives in Atlantis. And I've had, people I've met from that time on this journey. And we've remembered, had that soul recognition of, wow, we remembered each other, and talked about we were in Atlantis and remembered, like, really just, it's kind of interesting how it happens, right? um, but I've been having some former timelines come up, and I feel like we would get back to that state of what Atlantis was, that state of understanding, that state of resonance with the earth and with technology and with each other. And I think what's also important is to extract the wisdom and the medicine from that time as to what caused Atlantis to fall, what pride, our ego, or what being, our entity came and overtook the Atlanteans. What was it that happened for us to be divided and to fall so far to this layer of where we are so disconnected? So I feel like that is a realm of possibility of where we're headed, and it is going to take time, and it is going to take a lot. What it's not going to take is forcing people to wake up.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
you know, Again,
Yep.
opposite of loving it. Loving it means to accept it. Loving it means to appreciate where people are, where we are collectively. And it's not to say that we're just accepting it and saying that's okay. It's saying no, it's accepted though. And it's not to say these atrocious things that are happening are okay. It's saying no, but there's purpose in it too. And I also feel like a lot of times when, people think about the hippies, or they think about just people who are all peace and love, there can be that anger of, well, why should you have peace and love? Or no, we need chaos. And there are energies that are needed to show that contrast. So I feel like what it would actually look like loving it all is more of the natural kingdom, where there is still prey and predators, and there's still the energies that are not as light and fluffy as you might imagine. That it would still look like, it wouldn't look like separation though. It would look like understanding that the prey and the predator are connected in the circle of life. It would look like understanding these things and not needing to like separate them or make sense of it. It would be just an existence. So I feel like that's what the world would look like. It would look more like a natural order of things, to understand that. And I think people
I
can get
agree.
really angry when they think that it's just going to look like, Care Bears all the time or something. Like, really
Roses,
angry.
lollipops, and Care Bears.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
wouldn't be
it's
loving it all if that's what you
right.
insisted on, you know?
Exactly.
Now,
Exactly.
that being said, not to knock down the Care Bears, because we know it's not all Care Bears, and yet, then if we look at the energy of a Care Bear, maybe it would. Because
Mm,
Care Bears unto themselves, I freaking love Care Bears. They unto themselves, they allowed it to expand out whatever was their truth,
yeah.
right? And if we, it was so interesting that you brought up Atlantis. I've had these experiences and been shown that what if we did all fall from grace? Or maybe some of us, or maybe all of us, I don't know. And did we fall from grace, from Atlanta? Or I resonate with Lemuria because I've had some
Mm.
weird experiences that forced me to. I didn't have much of a choice.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm getting these visits. What do I do? Okay. And everybody's going to have different resonances with things that may be of, the more cosmic elements or not.
Mhm. Mhm.
My point being, what if we actually did fall from grace? And what if part of this experience, and I don't know, I don't claim it to be true. I've just had experiences that have shown me, and maybe it's metaphor teaching me, and maybe it really happened. But it feels true in my bones like, okay, we are here to like recalibrate whatever caused us to fall from grace, which is, the quote unquote gap, or really the intersection,
Mhm.
the connection between the wisdom and the wound.
Yeah.
And if we really loved it all, then it would allow us to, each in our own fashion, be those care bears. But again, it really takes the like loving every element of it, which is the prey and the predator. It
Yeah.
is the darkness and the light. It's all
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It is. It is. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I'm just like it's accepting it all. It's processing it. It's all of these things are happening because this is a pivotal time in our collective and our human experience, but also in the spiritual realm. Like I've said before, a lot of us are here to help transmute these energies. So we may experience densities in past life traumas and karmic situations as it is to bridge the gap between that fall from grace. It's helping those messages and putting the energies where they really need to be to help us on this ascension and help us through this process. So it's so much and nothing at the same time. So it's really, yeah. I mean, I think that mm, I think that it's all good. I think it's
Nice.
all good, because I think it's also us needing to recognize the power that we truly have. That we don't
Completely
have to
agree.
just sit back and let things be, or just say that's how it's always been, that's how it will always be, or to continue these traumatic cycles. We don't have to be powerless, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a process of, I mean, the words take your power back, they're such interesting words because it's like, well, it's not taking and it's not force.
Hmm.
And yet it is a process of reclaiming our power,
Yeah.
which requires as much reclaiming the shadow as it does
Hmm.
the light, and the connection between it all. And yet it is all a path to reclaiming that power, which is equal amounts of surrender and choice, equal amounts of we are creators and created.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Any closing statements in regards to loving it all that you feel is vital to get, or that you want to leave the audience with?
Mm. You know, I guess I wouldn't have like, part of me is like, this doesn't feel as profound as it could be, but it maybe just is. Maybe it's what needs to be said. It must be. When you just now were like, and it's all good. I feel like that's an important closing note
Yeah.
because there's so much going on in the world that looks like it's not to love.
Yeah.
And yet, I mean, quick, I won't go into a whole story of this because we're closing. I mentioned I'm in Greece, in Athens. We're out for a walk. They were walking home the other night, and I see these like throngs of police officers with shields and pepper spray and like the bomb, like the smoke bombs and stuff. And we're like, whoa. And then we see lines of buses. They're literally preparing. They've got six massive school bus sized buses preparing to arrest people. And so we asked some other people who were not cops. And they were like, oh, it's a protest. This is how they always go here.
Wow.
And as dark as it seemed, there was this weird light that I experienced of like everybody's having the experience they need to have, the police and the protesters.
Yeah.
And it is, and whatever the truth is or is not, because then I looked up what the protest was and I was like, oh, that's an interesting. Normally I'm all about, yeah, do it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's but like it's the experience we all need to be having.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
every part of it really is perfect for
Yeah.
each of us.
Exactly. All the puzzle pieces go back in the box. All the puzzle pieces connect and make a grand design. If you just look at one puzzle piece, you're gonna be like, what the hell is this? So you have to put them all together. But Jordanna, I am so appreciative of you. I thank you so much for spending time and parting wisdom with us. And I want to know how our audience can reach out to you, connect to you, and just anything you want to leave so that way we
Mm,
can stay connected.
mm, mm. So the best way, if you want to find me on social media, LinkedIn is the best place. I wish I could say find me on all these channels. We haven't yet, as of today's date, harnessed all those channels, but LinkedIn, you can easily find me. So I post, well, I'm going back to posting frequently there. I do also have a YouTube channel, Spiral Growth Systems, which I've got a bunch of videos and more will be coming soon. And then the best place is my website. So spiralgrowthsystems.com. And we also, there's like, I would say the best place is go to the website, scroll down, and the first thing you're going to see is the free training. If you opt in for that, it's right now it's about to get replaced by a 4-part training series, which is going to be amazing. So depending on, I don't know, how long do you think it's gonna be until this is released?
Oh, this is coming out like
Like
this week.
tomorrow?
Yeah,
Okay.
basically.
So if you're listening to me this week, you'll get a different training, but then you will be sent an email when the other training's ready. And the other training is still phenomenal. And either way, like then the 4-part series, you just get on my list and you'll get access to all the goodies. And then the last thing I will add is I do have for people that are like, gosh, I feel like I want to work with you and go deeper, but I don't know if I'm ready to invest, or I don't know if I have the money to invest or the time. I do offer a 5-day challenge. And right now we've got the next one coming up in early October. But if you get in now, there's all sorts of amazing bonuses with it. It's called the Make Time Your Ally Challenge. Obviously, probably, maybe it goes without saying, time as in recalibrating your relationship with space and time so that you're loving it all. So those are all the ways. SparrowGrowthSystems.com, LinkedIn. Um, yeah, yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
This has been amazing. And encountering you, I'm really grateful and feel very honored to spend this time
Abs-
with you, Sandra.
yes, thank you so much. I reciprocate that feeling, that sentiment. But yes, you all please connect here. Jordanna has been such a gift, and this will not be the last time you see us. So stay tuned, take the challenge, and connect with us. And until then, everyone be well, stay safe. Until then.